on some kind of scale, the Trumpian voters, they saw this as this potentiality. They saw this value, and they did it. They used it. Republicans voted by mail a lot, so much so that a lot of Republican states are looking into this, like permanent vote by mail. How do we do this? All the states that have secure Republican votes would, under a normal circumstance, look at the statistics of the last election and go, "Oh my God, look how people showed up for as far as voting. Look at what the turnout was like."
Right.
This helped. This was a measurable success. Therefore, why wouldn't Wyoming and some of these other states, why wouldn't they ultimately change, to a mail-in voting or, no excuse early voting, or, 15 to 30 days of, open voting going through this? Why wouldn't they do that? Apparently, the reason is because while it did help, it didn't help enough. It wasn't, it was a realization. It's kind of like the January 6th commission. Not having a January 6th commission looks bad, but not as bad as what would be found by a January 6th commission. The same thing is true of mail-in voting. Having mail-in voting is a huge boost to Republican turnout, but a recognition that they are outnumbered as voters. When you have pure numbers across the board, Democrat to Republican, and independents that lean either socially Democratic or socially liberal, or even financially recognize that the economy of the United States does better under Democrats consistently. I mean, look at the Clinton surplus. Look at the amount of money we poured in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and then the recovery under Obama-Biden, where they're like, it was the slowest recovery since the Great Depression. Well, it was also the biggest recession since the Great Depression, and it was nearly a depression. It was no guarantee it wasn't going to be a depression. That was not now we know we went through the Great Recession, but when it was occurring, that salvage was not counted. It's like looking back on wars you've won as if, well, that's how history played out and that's how it's always going to play out. As if at times there was not a very strong chance you were going to lose. And so the economic decisions of who's in charge matter. And by the way, I know we're a little bit max headroom on Twitter, but at least it's in sync relatively. Audio-wise, won't be, so hopefully it's a little better. I'm working on these piece by piece. I don't know, and by the way, on the regular live stream, the other software was working perfectly fine. It just decided today to panic. And it might, of course, be that I'm just overusing my computer. I am literally taxing it beyond its capabilities on all fronts. That I might just, be maxing out RAM, maxing out everything. And it wouldn't be surprising if that were the case. I'm definitely pushing the envelope with the show every time I do it. So that said, I appreciate everybody's patience today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Become a patron. Help us get to 1,000 and improve our technological capabilities as we live stream and fix these things. Other people, by the way, when these kind of things happen, I've seen bigger shows have live stream issues like this. They just stop and forget about it. Not me. I soldier on. Because that's the good old American spirit.
They stop the show?
Yeah, they just don't stream it. They just do either stay on the radio or just go, we're not streaming today, and then they just post it later.
Oh, wow.
It's a regular occurrence. Now, but I kind of go with the situation I have, make the best of it as we do. Right now, I have to say, the news that I'm seeing is incredibly reassuring, even when it's horrifying, because it is all about life in America for the most part. Most of the news we're seeing right now is not political. Over the course of the Trump administration, across the board, you were seeing nothing but political news, because every day we were dealing with this bull in a china shop. And what was he going to do and say today that could endanger the entire country, right? What were we dealing with, on like, you woke up and checked Twitter to see if he'd capsized the country, right? And so
Yep.
it was a constant push, and it was insane how this became normal. During the Trump years, which seems like 100 years ago at this point to everyone except huge Trump fans, I suppose. Every single day you would wake up, check Twitter, you would look on the news and go, okay, what did he just throw a monkey wrench into today? How did he attack NATO in a way? Like, what are you doing? We have so many threats in the world. Okay, so you're attacking NATO, but you're selling all of our corn, beef, and soybeans to China in the middle of a pandemic while Americans are in food lines. But you're giving money from tariffs to the farmers because you think you're buying votes in Wisconsin, right? We're watching this play out. Now we're seeing news like about the heat, about the crime rate, which has to be addressed in the countries that, in many ways the 90s are back in that regard. And in many ways the Bush 90s, in terms of spike in crime and what went on. And we're seeing, Simone Biles and stories about, the sports figures doing amazing things. And and the Stanley Cup, playoffs are happening right now. And there's this trickle in the news of things, of normalcy, the normal, abnormal.
It throws me off.
Yeah. It's very strange for most people.
When I see Simone Biles on my home news aggregate page, I'm like,
yes.
Wait a second. Why is this being fed to me? What happened to her? And I'm like, oh no, it's just her being amazing.
Right, exactly. And this is, I don't know if any of you remember, I don't know, the 90s, the 2000s, the 80s, the 70s even during Nixon, I suppose, a little bit. That, all the other stuff that happened in life, all the other stuff you could focus on, all the other stuff that even if you were engaged in politics, which I've been all of my adult life, I was doing Reagan jokes at the Clout Club in Chicago before I was old enough to vote. As much as I've been engaged, there was always a lot of life outside of that made the news cycle. But during Trump, it wasn't. We got to take a break. The biggest news, I think, is that the Supreme Court is making decisions on the regular, and conservatives were counting on this being the one area that was going to go their way. It was on autopilot. It was supposed to solve their problems, and it ain't. We'll be back. Now, sync should be fine. I'll just be a little choppy occasionally, which I can live with. I think it's a little easier than being off by a lot as far as...
So weird.
I don't know what it was, and it's brand new. And this is the first time we've actually tried to get you in via Skype in this regard. So sometimes Skype can throw a monkey wrench in things. And because it's sending my audio to you and yours back to me, and I'm sending it to Chicago and back to I'm sure there's a point in it where my computer's just going, wait, what is supposed to go where? I know I'm overtaxing it, so I'm gonna do it like I know I'm gonna end up doing a teardown. But everything was working fine on the live stream, on the regular live stream. So hopefully. Twitch has been good since my last reboot. Excellent. It is a little choppy, though, I guess, occasionally, but hopefully not too bad. When will this Trump nonsense be over and finished? So sick of it all. I know. Well, that's the thing, is that he's the guy that's ruining it for everybody. Yeah. Let's see.
I'm going to grab my socks. They're right over here.
I don't need to know, honestly.
Yeah, you know.
None of my business.
Socks.
Socks. Jump back over to me real quick. This is going to be choppy for a second, but it'll be all right. And then here he comes back. Just like you have such ominous foot sounds.
Yep.
Even though
Walking slow.
Are you barefoot or were you in some sort of?
I wear Birkenstocks around the house all the time. Yeah, it's for foot support.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Ever since I had plantar fasciitis. If there are any runners in the audience, they'll understand.
Sure. I'll be happy when oh, thank you, Drylethy. I will hydrate. Thank you.
Hydrate.
I haven't had a sip of anything since I've been working on this stuff. I even have a cup of coffee that's been sitting here untouched. It's now awful. It's now awful. But it's just too much work in one day. I swear to God, I'm gonna get the show like up and running by the end of it smoothly.
Coming back in 15 seconds.
Just in time for the happy ending.
Thank you.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yes, piece by piece, as we slowly put together, and I have to say, I'm enjoying sort of the shock moments that the right wing is having in terms of the Supreme Court this week. Now, obviously, many people view it as sort of a split decision. The story of the Catholic Charities, issue with either foster or adoptive parents that they are not forced to allow gay couples to do this or whatever, is again, I'm at two minds about this. One, of course, it's a form of odd bigotry that it seems particularly shocking or maybe telling, dealing with the issue of priests in the Catholic Church and moving, the pedophilic ones around with impunity and hiding that fact from communities again and again and again. But somehow it's gay people in committed relationships that are the problem. It's that being said, but then again, of course, a certain level of religious autonomy that ultimately will decide whether a religion survives a true test of its faith or its expression. If the charity within it and the beliefs within it are resilient enough to deal with reality, or if it somehow these kind of insistence by the Catholic Church are ultimately what drives it into the dustbin of history over time. And so, do you allow it? You give it enough rope to hang itself, or do you try to enforce a secular viewpoint onto a religious organization, and the slippery slope there being difficult. Now the big one, of course, is the Affordable Care Act case. Which was again on one of Trump's favorite things, standing, but it was a 7-2 decision, and which is extraordinary when it comes to an ACA decision when you're dealing with a effectively conservative court.
Yep.
Amy Coney Barrett siding with the majority, as was Brett Kavanaugh, causing a level of panic within these people because these folks were supposed to be the magic bullet to deal with these issues, to just give Republicans what they want. They are there with a mission. Now, do I still believe they have a mission while they're there? Absolutely. But I think their singular mission is Roe v. Wade. Everything else is either something they don't care about, they will argue about, but ultimately, side with either whatever majority or kind of, I guess, expected result from the Supreme Court. But when it comes to Roe v. Wade, it gives the artificial view of sort of balance by them if they rule normally on a bunch of other things, and then when it finally comes to Roe v. Wade, they can just stick a knife in it and it's done. And ultimately, again, Roe v. Wade is not about abortion. It's about medical privacy. And the irony that the Republicans are against medical privacy in this way because they think it's the only way they can go after abortion, because there's certainly a way you could do that, which is, of course, provide every possible opportunity for anyone who wants to put a child up for adoption, advanced science where reversible vasectomies are kind of a thing, and maybe even a male tradition for teenage boys. I can imagine the fun I would have had during a certain period of my life if I'd have known I was shooting blanks and I could turn it back on itself. I would have been in the sign me up line. I would have been part of that draft. If it were reversible, like female contraceptives, if it was temporary and you could make a decision, you could plan your parenthood, as it were. That would, you could get rid of most, if not all, if that was an available thing, especially if it was free of charge. Can you imagine? Now, but those are sensible responses. Those are the ways you stop the need for abortions. You stop them at their cause, not at the sort of religious and moral end where you can kind of monetize their existence to drive out your voter base, right? Why solve the problem when the problem brings your voters to the polls?
Yeah.
Right. So, and in this one, but when it comes to the Affordable Care Act, the shock amongst Republicans about that was hilarious and enjoyable, and I think even amongst liberals, surprised that was the standing rule, that they just, maybe that was what the argument was, because these were decided, I think, in November and announced just recently, and so they were back and forth about the wording of them, and they had to write how they were decided, and so there was a lot of back and forth between Kavanaugh and I believe Sonia Sotomayor and Kagan, I believe as well, about, okay, we know the standing part is true. Are you on board with that standing? Is it going to be 6-3 or is it going to be 7-2? And so this back and forth about the languaging on it, and ultimately deciding on standing was one of their ways of stiff-arming it and allowing, using a form of, I guess, judicial cowardice on the part of the conservatives there, that they could just use that as a reason for not going anywhere near it. And this is Mike Lindell's opinion about why they use standing to not deal with his lawsuits, because if they have to go through them, they're going to disappoint a lot of Republican voters and a lot of Lindell fans and a lot of Trumpers if they actually come out and show how garbage these cases are. His video Absolute 9-0, which he was counting on and believes, which is just embarrassing. He's going to show this evidence at some point to the Supreme Court, and they're all going to go, we don't care what party we're from. This is amazing. This is, you can't ask for better evidence than this. Now, I've been through all that evidence on my live stream. I've done every single one of Mike Lindell's movies. I've gone through them beat by beat. Some of them have taken me hours to get through. Yeah. And there is no way, if there is a 9-0, it will be all of the Supreme Court against Mike Lindell, that he will come up with 0. I don't doubt that, because Ginny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, was responsible for paying for some of the buses on January 6th, that there's a chance he might kind of go, well, I think we ought to take a look at this. But the rest of them, the other 8, are going to seriously deal a blow to this ridiculousness, because it's not, if it ever even gets there. But the idea is that they use standing to stiff arm it because they didn't want to deal with the death threats and craziness by going into it and calling it out for the garbage that it is. So there's a sort of a belief at this point that maybe that was the finagling between the conservative members of the court and the liberal members of the court that were, arguing this point, is that ultimately by using the standing argument, they were able to free themselves from having to deal with getting rid of the ACA, which is incredibly popular and saves millions of lives. And is one of the few things in the pandemic that kept a lot of people from falling into, financial ruin because of medical bills and the like. They gave them the option for this, especially as, even the Trump, administration was extending the time period by which you could sign up for it on purpose because it's helpful. And there is no remedy in the courts to fix the lack of the ACA. Where is Trump's healthcare plan? Remember it was 2 weeks away? How many years was it 2 weeks away? The man lost his presidency. Yeah, lost his presidency and is not even floating the idea that we were here it is. We finished it finally. We were working on it. We crunched the numbers. Finally, here's the Trump care. Here it is. And it never happened. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen when he pretends he's going to run in 2024. It's not going to happen when they talk about, getting people in 2022 to repeal the ACA again, try a fourth time to go through this. It isn't going to happen because there is no way you deal with the pre-existing conditions aspect of care without the ACA. The Republicans do not have a plan, will not have a plan, and cannot have a plan that satisfies their voters, or more importantly, their electors, their actual, the House representatives and the senators that are involved, and their handlers, regardless of what the people. I mean, obviously, Obamacare's popularity continues to rise. And with a public option added to it, would have been bulletproof, and they know it. Yep. So the constant attacks, like the voting laws that they're passing, are more about ginning up Republican votes than getting rid of Democratic ones. The attacks on the ACA are less about getting rid of the ACA than it is about keeping the public option from being added. It's easier to make it's very hard to make an argument that the ACA is terrible. Or that the public option would be terrible if the ACA is just fine. If you don't complain about the ACA, you just let it function, see if it works, support it as a law, work on it, make it, improve it where it needs to be, but that's it. And then somebody comes along and goes, let's add a public option to it. Let's take something that's already popular, already helpful, and let's make it more popular and more helpful. It's really hard to argue against that if you haven't been chipping away at it or attacking it nonstop year after year. The attacks in the ACA are less about getting rid of the ACA because they have no replacement. They're about keeping the public option off the table. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. What kind of fresh shit is going to be happening on August 15th? Oh, nothing, by the way. It's going to, honest to God, I'm always a little bit afraid that, obviously there'll be some nutcase that wants to do it, but here's my impersonation of August 15th.
God. Sorry. I farted.
That's the whole day. There's no other there. It's not happening. I'm sorry.
Is that So I Married an Axe Murderer, or
no? That's Gold Member.
Okay.
Austin Powers.
So it's Fat Bastard.
Yeah. Although there is going to be an offshoot series on Netflix about the Pentaveret, which is got its mention in So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Well, it's a well-known fact, Sonny Jim, that there's a secret society of the 5 wealthiest people in the world, known as the Pentaveret, who run everything in the world, including the newspapers, and meet tri-annually at a secret country mansion in Colorado known as the Meadows.
So who's in this Pentaveret?
The Queen, the Vatican, the Gettys, the Rothschilds, and Colonel Sanders before he went tits up.
And Colonel
Oh,
Sanders.
I always hated the Colonel with his
Oh,
wee
with
beady eyes. Oh, you're gonna love my chicken.
My chicken. Oh, right.
Those wee beady eyes.
His wee beady eyes. Dad, how can you hate the Colonel? Because he puts a chemical in his chicken that makes it crave it fortnightly. Smartass. Like you have to have it every 2 weeks. Yeah. You have to have it every 2 weeks. The original Chick-fil-A. We'll be coming back in just...
Back in 20.
Excellent. Thank you. Oy.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending. Yay!
Yay! So, one of the happy endings is that even though it's choppy, audio is kind of in sync again, as best we can. So, and again, I'm still going to blame Skype. I'm just going to call it. We're going to try something else next week. I'm going to blame Skype. We'll do a test. You and I need to do a test broadcast where you just come on as a guest and we talk Kiss music, and we'll just go back and forth and see, I'll bring you on and off in different softwares all day long, and we'll figure out what it is.
Right
so
on.
one of the good news, obviously good news is happy Juneteenth, and the fact that it passed the House 415 to 14. That's what I call bipartisan, right? And
that's 14 very interesting people from some very...
Now, wait a minute. John, you know very well from watching as much Dinesh D'Souza as you do that the Klan was all Democrats, and the Democrats are the party of racism, right? It was the Republicans that won the Civil War. I mean, we'll pretend the 60s didn't happen, but you get my point. So, obviously, those 14 that voted against it are clearly hardcore Democrats. Clearly, you know what I mean? The longest serving Democrats in the... Oh, no, they're all Republicans. Every single one of them.
Oops.
Yeah, including, let's see, Jim Faillia of South Carolina. Somebody else is from South Carolina that we don't like and take very seriously, who's dropped off the radar lately. There hasn't been a lot of Lindsey Graham these days. Have you noticed that? I mean, I don't miss him, but one of the best things about the post-Trump fade is that while the Jim Jordans of the world exist, they've really been eclipsed by, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, and they've been keeping a fairly low profile during this period. Now, I don't doubt they'll get really noisy around 2022, but when, one of the members of your party who's got the biggest profile, Marge Greene, is coming out and saying that wearing masks is the same as your family being put in a boxcar and sent to Auschwitz, I don't know if it really is a good idea to race out in front of a camera and start either defending or vilifying, depending on how that crowd, especially since the level of overlap in your crowds, because the Jim Jordan supporters are the Marge Greene supporters and vice versa. It isn't like he can come out there and Kitzinger the whole thing, right? So Ralph Norman voted against it, and this was his reasoning. See if we can hear this.
South Carolina Representative Ralph Norman was just one of the 14 House members who actually voted against the bill to make Juneteenth.
By the way, if you're surprised by his accent when you hear it, I'll be shocked.
National holiday. Now, of those no votes were made by Republicans.
Where is he? Wait, hold on. He's got to play his part. Where is he?
Had several tweets about the subject. Here's just some of what he had to say.
He said, this was his tweet. First of all, our Independence Day is July 4th, period. Independence Day celebrates the anniversary of our declared independence from Great Britain, and it's been that way for 245 years. My statement on the Juneteenth vote. Can you just be incapable of getting something? I mean, are you, honest to God, are you just, can you not process it? Is that that these are not, similar things? The emancipation of slaves and the creation of the country are two distinct things, both deserving of holidays. Black people still celebrate July 4th, but with the addition of Juneteenth, Americans overall can celebrate the power of our independence and the importance of us, existing as a country, having fought a civil war to end slavery. Now, maybe, just maybe, he's one of the guys that regrets our emancipation from England. Maybe that's it. Maybe the fact that the Brits fought a lot of open battles stopping slavery themselves. Again, built train lines and roads in Kenya to try and balance out, so they would stop their slave trade in Kenya. Supply, help them build other industries there. We're blowing up slave ships and the like when they were coming in to get more stock in Africa along the Cape of Good Hope or wherever that was. All those stories. I mean, maybe he just yearns to a time where, he thinks America would have ended slavery sooner had we stayed with the monarchy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe that's what he means. But I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that's not. I think what his problem is, as a representative of South Carolina and from the Lindsey Graham wing of the Republican Party, is that he doesn't like a holiday being added specifically that deals with the end of slavery, the reason the Civil War was fought, and the fact that Union soldiers, white Union soldiers, had to ride on horseback down to Galveston, Texas, and tell people that they were no longer slaves and that they were free because the South was keeping this information from them. And that was the day they found out. I'm certain that's one of the reasons why it's kind of digs at him a little bit. It's not because this overlaps with July 4th. I mean, does he really think there's the nation doesn't need another barbecue holiday during the summer where people can celebrate freedom and their participation in freedom? I mean, what's next? Suffragette Day? What, oh my God, are we going to have a holiday for, we've got International Women's Day. Is that going to become a bank holiday? God forbid, right? This is a big fear. And he's even like, what about, is there going to be a Native American holiday as well? And like, no, they got their own sovereign lands and reservations out of that. It's a wholly different thing. None of this.
All this, but I want my thing too. You've already got your thing,
right? You don't even appreciate it.
No, you act like you don't have it to have some sort of LARPing of discrimination.
Right, and ultimately that's where that's the Tucker Carlson, the FBI is out to get me, just like they were out to get the Chicago 7 or something. Just like they were, infiltrating the social circles of Malcolm X and Medgar Evers and MLK. There's really no difference. Isn't Tucker Carlson the new MLK? Isn't he in Trump's side? Aren't they just being subverted by the man? It's absurd. I'm half expecting Tucker Carlson to raise his fist on the air, he's suddenly White Panthers, whatever nonsense but that is, I guess that is at the root of all of this for Republicans everywhere. This is the big problem that they have. This is the big issue that they have, is that as they themselves have to compete with everyone else, not just who they select to compete with for jobs, positions, wealth, loans, the ability to buy real estate, start businesses and all that. If they have to compete with everybody else, they know they're going to be on the losing side of it, because as much as they want to believe in things like the bell curve, they also recognize that there's two slopes on the bell curve, and there's a very strong chance that the Paul Gosars of the world and the Representative Clyde and the Representative Ralph Normans of the world are on the deep slope of the bell curve, even if they believe in it, and we will watch over the next little bit this wailing and gnashing of teeth. There will be some freak out around this. But and next week, again, this week being a tee-up show in some ways, next week we're going to start seeing if these indictments are coming through. But unlike the right, Johnny and I don't need that to be true. I mean, I will look forward to the day when Trump has to face the music legally.
Yeah.
I look forward to the day when Matt Gaetz has to face the music legally. But I don't clamor for it. What I'm proud of right now is the week of the G7 we had that was abundantly normal. The response the United States is having to Russia, which is abundantly normal and is getting stronger all the time. And then our news not being 100% political, so that doing this show once a week makes even more sense. Just saying. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks for dealing with our tech issues today. It's like an old school HSRPM. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much. Thanks to everybody in Chicago. See you next time. Phew. Man,
all right,
just
good show, guys.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, thank you so much. All right.
I'm
Appreciate
so
it.
sorry you had to deal with all that.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
See you next week.
Yeah, I'll let you go, and I'm gonna tinker some more. Apparently,
Yeah, let me know if you want me to help you test.
Yeah, because I might need a jump on, like maybe tomorrow we do this.
Yeah, just shoot me a text.
Yeah, and we'll try. I'll pop on using Zoom, or there's a thing in Wirecast called Rendezvous, which is their system.
Okay.
And it very well may be that it works. That they hamstring things like Skype and other stuff just so you use their thing. There's a lot of that going around. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah. So anyways, I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging in there, and I will see you later on. I'll give you a text later on, and we'll try and get this up and running. And I apologize.
Yeah, I'll be running off and on all day.
Okay, awesome. All right, cheers.
Good.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. And thanks everybody for dealing with the stream today. Apologies for the audio sync issues. It's one of those things that I had no control over until the show was rolling. At some point, I think maybe what I have to do is roll on Restream before turning it on like I used to do back in the old days. StreamYard doesn't work for what I need, and I don't know that it's Restream, so yeah. Phew. Yeah, I'm going to sign off early today, and because it's been a tooth pull, and I need to run to a retro game store and get something for my kid, so because he's been clamoring about it. And yes, you guys can watch when we do the test streams, because we'll just, once it gets rolling, we'll just do it. We'll talk about music, and I'll throw stuff up so I can test some software and stuff. And if you want the show as a podcast, you can go to the Sexy Liberal website. The Sexy Liberal Podcasting Network carries my show. So, and they cut out all the commercials and shorten the show to an hour. And there you go. So, all right. Thank you, guys. And yeah, tomorrow's Father's Day. So solving one of my issues on Father's Day would be a lovely issue. Thank you, Diana. Have you thought about yes, that's the next step, is using two computers to assemble the stream. Yeah, agreed. Where I'm basically watching the other stuff on another one. That's the next step. So yeah. Video is not as important as audio, and the audio sounded good. It just was out of sync and kind of maddening. So anyways, I will solve that issue. Don't worry, as I chipped away with it. And right now I'm dealing with we go through these transitions every so often where they update the software, like either the system software, and then there's this lag where the software has to catch up, or the system software comes out, or the actual software comes out, and then the system software throws a monkey wrench in. Either way, it's the same kind of thing. But I appreciate you guys. I will see you guys later. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. I'm going to go have I've got to go run an errand and then take a nap. Oy, God. Thanks, guys.